We already did our breakdown of the first two episodes of the docuseries, The Last Dance. What amazing television that was last night, and we are so fortunate, so lucky to have the director, Jason Hehir, joining us right now on the show. So let's bring him on. Jason, congratulations. Great work so far. We all can't wait for the next 8 episodes, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. How are you?
I'm great, man. How are you?
We're good. Did you sleep at all? I know you and Dave were talking last night. So are you good? You rested at all?
I'm good. If you hear my voice is a little scratchy, it's kind of sleep deprivation for the last few weeks. We're trying to rush to the finish line to finish these. The thing is that the last episode is May 17th, but it doesn't mean we can finish on May 16th. This thing also goes to Netflix, and it has to be translated into languages that go to 185 countries, and it has to be subtitled, and there's closed captioned, and there's all kinds of sound mixing and color correction. So we have to finish episode 10 by Wednesday. We were supposed to have finished it. You're supposed to be done 4 months before you air something on Netflix. And they're very generous to us over there and letting us have like 3 or 4 weeks. So they're burning the midnight oil too. But yeah, it's bizarre. I'm not getting much sleep these days, and I did talk to Dave last night. There's a lot of adrenaline, obviously, and it was great. Heard from a lot of people that, Little League teammates from like T-ball and stuff, like wow. People that you're not in touch with. And I think my last name is a bit unusual. So when that pops up, people are like, "Oh my God, I think I went to 4th grade with that guy or something." So yeah, it was just fun. It was enjoyed it with family and a lot of texting back and forth, and everybody Zooms these days, so we did that. But I feel good.
Joining us right now, the director of what I'll say is the greatest 10-part documentary ever on Michael Jordan, Jason Hehir. Jason,
wait! You didn't tell me Dave was going to be on this.
No,
we were trying to hide him.
I gotta go.
Let's get right to it, Jason. You've been doing all these fluff interviews, 48 minutes with Jalen and Jacoby. That's why your voice is jacked. Do you worry that your obvious bias towards East Coast hip-hop is going to shine through in this doc?
I can't wait for my bias towards East Coast hip-hop to shine through, Dave.
They had some on the West Coast,
when we do the 20-part Showtime doc, I promise you there's going to be a lot of DJ Quick.
You're getting a lot of feedback on what I say is your second-best montage ever. I'm biased, personally, towards some basketball highlights set to a song called Bombs Over Baghdad from a different movie. But you might remember, in this case, I'm bad, LL Cool J. And perfect. I saw you talking to Jalen and Jacoby a little bit about that. The backstory, Jason, now I just want you to go back on some of that and how it's not like you go, "Oh, I like this song. I'm going to play it underneath these highlights." Just some of the hurdles you have to jump through in order to get a song on the doc.
Yeah. Well, first, yes, it's certainly not as simple a decision as like, yeah, I like this song, let's play it under this. Although with Michael playing, I mean, you could play, I don't want to denigrate any artist, but you could play any music under Michael and it still look like poetry. So, but we put a lot of thought into the era, try to make it as close as possible to the actual era for this series, the year actually that it came out. I think Bad may have come out in 87, so I think we may have missed that by a year, but at least the era. And then the clearance process, the music clearance process is always kind of tangled, and with a doc like this, it's even more so because there's so many eyeballs on it, and there's big music companies and labels involved. For a rap song, anytime there's a sample in a rap song, that means if there's one note from a saxophone that was played in a jazz club in 1938, and DJ Premier found that piece of vinyl and put that in a song, that note, whoever wrote that song, he gets a credit or she gets a credit as a writer on that rap song. So, for instance, we were looking into using Wicked, Ice Cube from 1992 from the Predator album, and that song has 48 writers. Now, Ice Cube penned the lyrics and rapped over a beat, but there's 48 different people who compose things that are sampled in that song. So the music clearance process for old school hip-hop especially is nearly impossible because this was before the sampling laws came into effect. People were just putting records out and not even crediting these people because there weren't tough sampling laws in effect. When hip-hop started to take off, that's when people started to say, hey, you sampled my drum beat from the 1960s, or you took this hook from the 70s, and people started to get paid, rightfully so. But the bookkeeping back then and the data is just not present now. So some of these songs I really wanted to use. There's a song in episode 8 that I really wanted to use called "Danger" by Blase Blase. That's from 1996. And we couldn't clear it because there's samples in there that literally no one knows where it came from, and the label says, we're not going to get sued by some woman who says, that's my voice on this thing from 30 years ago, or that's my grandmother's voice, you owe our family. So they'll say, we just can't clear this. Welcome to the Terror Dome was a song that I wanted to use in the Fab Five, and Universal or whatever the label is won't clear that because there's certain samples that they can't locate, and they're afraid to get sued, so they say you can't use it. So music clearance is really a hurdle you have to overcome, but I take it really, really, really seriously. That's one of the most important parts of any documentary, and it might be the thing that I'm the most passionate about in any series.
Yeah, and so Jason, I'm guessing with that, when you get the clearance, because that was so perfect for that montage on Jordan and the Celtics, is that a celebration day? Like when you go, perfect, this is where I want to use it, this is where we'll use it, and when you get the clearance, is that a big celebration?
I ran into our lead editor's office and said, we got it, and pumped my fist when we got that song, because that was a tough one to get. I'm Bad was. And so, like, Eric B. and Rakim, I wanted to use I Know You Got Soul, which is from that same album that we used, I Ain't No Joke, but I Know You Got Soul might be my favorite rap song of all time. And we had that in the first rough cut, and then the label pulled it and said, there's a horn that we can't figure out who it's from, so you can't clear this. But you can, I said, all right, can we use I Ain't No Joke? And we could clear that. So it's not nearly as simple as just saying, oh, let's go to Spotify and pick out a song. I wish it were like that, but it's just not.
Jason Hehir joining us. Didn't use any of my music suggestions, by the way. The Last Dance, 2 episodes every Sunday.
Every rose has its thorn didn't seem to fit.
There's a little bit of truth to that I won't go into. So, Jason, you're going to get questions all day, yesterday, all week, all month, and they're rightfully so going to be focused on the documentary. And just so people understand, Jason is not only an extremely humble guy, but he detests talking about himself. He's a part of a team, and he's very obsessed with that. And so I'm going to ask him to talk about himself, because watching, knowing this is coming out, dude, I was nervous all weekend long. And as the build-up happens, you have LeBron James, you have everybody tweeting about how excited they are about this. And then last night, not only was it the #1 trending topic on Twitter, it was 9 of the top 20 trending topics on Twitter. And you're watching this all unfold in real time. We've talked about it before. It's like you were 18 months pregnant, and you finally had the first part of the baby last night. I'm not going to ask you how you would have felt if people had.
It's a lovely image.
I'm just saying, brother. You're watching it last night in whatever situation you were in, and as you are scanning and looking and seeing the reactions, was it gratifying? Was it relief? How were you feeling knowing people were consuming this baby nationwide all at the same time last night?
Well, first, my girlfriend looks after my mental health as well as she can, because she's lived through this with me. We started dating the day after I started working on this show, which was like 28 months ago or whatever that is. So she's only known me as part of this project, and she's known that this is just building and building and building and building, and especially with all the COVID stuff, the work has just been really intense. So she just doesn't want to see my brain come oozing out of my ears during this thing with just overflowed stimuli of looking online and looking at Twitter and looking at Instagram and answering texts and emails and stuff. So she said, I have one request when we watch this. I need you to put your phone down, be present, and just sit here and watch this with me. And it was great. Sorry, my voice is cracking. It was great. We did that, and I got permission from her. We both said, all right, we'll check our phones at the commercials, and we'd check, and it would be like, 700 texts there. The good thing is that the ESPN people and some of MJ's people, we were all on a text together, all the executives who made this. We had a big... we had a quick Zoom meeting last night, like just to toast each other, and then we were on a text chain during it, and they were texting me stuff they didn't know that I wasn't keeping track myself, but everyone was kind of trading memes and things back and forth. So to see those jokes landing, to see that like former Chicago resident took off, like that was a little inside joke between me and my editor. It was like, let's see if we can get this one through, because I was pretty adamant that we give context for why Barack Obama's in here. Like, if Barack Obama liked the Bulls, yeah, millions of people like the Bulls. But I just love the notion that Barack Obama was broke and didn't have the money to go to a Chicago Bulls game, but he's a huge Jordan fan, and he was at that point just a Chicago resident. No one knew who he was. So it was an organic way to get him in there. But that was like a little aside, the traveling cocaine circus thing. That, I think, was the moment in the interview with Michael. It was probably a half hour in or maybe 20 minutes into the first interview. And that's when I knew, like, wait a second, this guy really came to actually do this. Because normally, especially with, like, drugs in the NBA, and he's got an image to uphold and all that, I expected to say, I heard they called it the traveling cocaine circus, and him to say, well, maybe, yeah, there's a lot of things I didn't see, and I wasn't around for that. When he burst out laughing like that, I was like, oh, man, this is, all right, tell me about that. That's why I said, is it accurate? And then he told that story about Peoria, which that's like gold, to study this team and this guy for 2 years and think that you know every possible story. I'd never read that anywhere. I never heard of that story. So for him to share that with us, and I mean, to hear Michael Jordan saying you get lines over here and weed over here and women over here and things I'd never seen in my life, I mean, it was like, wow, this guy's really, he's telling the truth. He's revealing stuff about how it felt to be him back then. So that was a huge turning point in the interview and in the series for me.
We're talking with Jason Hehir, director of The Last Dance. Episode 1 and 2 aired yesterday. Now, this was supposed to go in June. I know for you would have had more time. You just described what you have to do to get this up and running for Netflix. Now, we win in this because we get to watch it sooner, and we're going through this terrible time of COVID-19. But for you, in one sense, Jason, now that it's been moved up, is the timing, I don't know, besides the stress level, is it even better? Do you have a different opinion if you think it would have ran in a normal time in June? It still would have been this huge undertaking for you and landed beautifully, but I don't know, the way it's been played out here and rushed for you, does it feel any different, or you think it's landing any differently?
It feels way more gratifying. Just to feel like you're helping in any way. Mm-hmm. I'm not a doctor. I know nothing about medicine. I can't. The only way that I can help anybody, our fellow citizens, is to stay away from them, and that's the marching orders for all of us. So to have an opportunity to say, like, hey, if I said to anyone, if I said to you guys, hey, listen, if you work really hard, you can make a lot of people during this time happy for a couple hours every Sunday night. Will you work hard and do that? Of course you would. That's what we all want to do right now. Everyone wants to go out there and give strangers a hug. It's like, man, when has there ever been, certainly not in my lifetime, a more common denominator global moment than this? I mean, I could go to Indonesia right now and hug a guy, and he would know why I wouldn't hug him because I need to keep 6 feet away. But, I mean, there's people all over the world that are relating to this. So you get an opportunity like this. It was immediate. As soon as this thing went into effect, it was even before the internet chatter started, like, a day or two later. All of us were like, we can do this. I mean, we already had 1 and 2 done. 1 and 2 have been done since, like, early March. So immediately, I talked to Connor Schell and John Dahl and Libby Geist at ESPN, and then Gabe Spitzer at Netflix, and all of us. It wasn't even, it took no convincing to anybody. It was like, let's do this. We can do this. Let's try and get this out there and, give people something to take their mind off things. So that's the feeling on it. Obviously, there's more eyeballs on it because there's nothing else to watch, and you talk about captive audience. We're all stuck inside. But I think a lot of people would have watched it anyway because it's Michael Jordan. Like I said, you could play any music you want underneath him. You could people would just stare at him getting in and out of his car on old footage. So. Yeah, there's more eyeballs on it, but that's not the gratifying part. The gratifying part is you know what the best thing that I heard last night was? A buddy of mine called me up, or he texted me and said, this is the first time in 5 or 6 weeks that my family and I have sat down together and not spoken or thought about the virus. Everything is worth it for that, if people have that feeling.
Jason Hehir, director of The Last Dance, joins us, and I've been very vocal lately about how proud I am of you and how much I do love you. But what I haven't said, and you know this to be true, is I basically maintain our friendship because I actually like your father more than you. So when you're disseminating all of the things that people are saying, there's really, to me, only one opinion that matters. What did Joe think of it?
He loved it. And my parents hadn't seen it. I have like trusted friends and colleagues and stuff who have seen rough cuts and they've given me notes and everything. And a lot of that is through like links and passwords and stuff. My parents are my parents. They don't. I don't think that they know how to use like a Vimeo link on Apple TV and things like that, and they don't want to watch on their laptop. So, and they were content to just wait for it to come out. So he loved it. My mom loved it. My mom, of course, is over the moon, as any mom would be. Moms are just proud of their kids. But they're sports fans, too. I've told the story ad nauseum about how me and my dad were at that 63-point game. So this is really, it goes deeper with me to my Michael Jordan iconization from the time that I was a kid, posters on my wall. That's me and my dad's connection, one of many connections that we have, and certainly sports in my family. So I did a family Zoom call last night. It was so much fun because they always come to all the premieres. Dave, you met my cousins and my brothers, and we roll like 15 deep to these things. Like that's the fun part is enjoying this with my family.
The hair plan.
So we got on Zoom last night and had our own little premiere party, but he loved it. Yeah, and my family was really excited as well because we grew up in a sports environment. That's all we did when I was a kid was play sports and chase each other around with a movie camera that we had. And now I get to do both.
Well, the storytelling is so amazing, and I can't even. I mean, obviously, the task is just overwhelming to even think about. I'm just the process of this, Jason. How do you even? Do you go in with a plan when you're interviewing someone? Do you let them just talk? You've got to frame some questions. How much of it do you have set in mind, or is the story just come out after interview after interview after interview?
Well, you have to go in with a plan because then you'd be screwed if you're just letting the person talk and trying to put something together. So you go in with we had a 10-episode arc built before we shot the first interview. And that deviated a lot. Every time something happens that is worth a deviation in the storyline, then that's good news. It's more work, but it's good news because it's like, all right, you know what? This is so good. We got to move this here, move this here. I have a giant cork board in my office that has color-coded note cards on it, 10 columns for 10 episodes, and I've taken pictures of that, as it's evolved, and I can't release that as a photo now because it would give away every single scene of all the next episodes to come, but it might be a cool thing for people to see afterwards, to see, like, literally just chicken scratch, like this scene goes here and here and here. There's probably 800,000 holes in that corkboard from all the moving around that we had to do of these note cards. And now let's put this here. I mean, there was a cut a year ago that started in France, very verite, like barely any music, just them getting off the plane. There was a cut that had MJ's childhood very, very early in it. There's all kinds of different iterations that we had in this thing. So it's a long process, but that's the fun part. Sitting there with people who are equally passionate about this and people who, like, I also love, outside of work to go grab a beer with. These are some of my best friends. And people I respect the most, too, like incredibly talented people who put these things together and work their butts off to do so. So to sit there with them and say, hey, I have an idea for this, or even like if a PA comes in and offers like a piece of footage, like, hey, this might go here, like everyone is involved in that process. So that's the thrill of it when you're making it.
All right, I got a two-parter here. Question one, because I know it's a short answer. We're not going to find out what was in the glass, are we?
We had a catering department, and you would have to ask them. That I can give you the number of the people in Florida. But.
All right, question two. I know this might be picking between your kids or your dogs or whatever. Do you have a favorite episode?
I think so. Well, I don't have a least favorite episode, I'm glad to say.
Sure.
There's no episode that I'm like, oh, God, I just hope we make it past this one. I love 7. I think people are going to like 7 a lot, especially the ending. And I got to say, man, we just finished 10. We have a few more days of notes with all those executives that I mentioned before. Everybody's weighing in, and even Michael is weighing in now because he's quarantined like the rest of us, and he's sitting there watching these episodes and giving notes on it. And it's funny to disagree with Michael Jordan. Like, no, man, that doesn't go there. It goes here.
Wow. Wow.
But it's not. I mean, it's not like I'm sitting there on the phone with him. But those notes come from him, and they say, "Hey, Michael's adamant that this goes here and this goes here." It's like, no. Well, Michael, this would be ruined. It's like these little. It's like a Jenga piece. If you pull it out of the bottom row, the whole thing comes crashing down. So it's like, all right, we can fix that. We can address the note with Michael, but we have to keep this here. So, but I got to say that the final from when Game 6 begins in '98, because we have converging timelines here on the series, right? So the spine of the thing is the '97-98 season, and then you're going to see Michael's career and the evolution of the dynasty on that other timeline, and then those timelines both converge in episode 10. So there's no more flashbacks in episode 10 because we're in the present at that point. You'll see next week there's, them overcoming the Pistons, the first title and things like that. And then you see, back-to-back in episode 5 and the Sun series in 6 and it goes on and on. But I gotta say, man, I know that when I get goosebumps, you get goosebumps normal, but I get them on my scalp sometimes. You get scalp goosebumps and it's like, oh, all right. This is hitting. This is working. So I think from the moment that Game 6 begins all the way until the final credits, that might be my favorite stretch of the entire series. So 7 but 10 is 10 was just born, but that kid's going to be a winner. So we'll see which one's my favorite child.
That's awesome. I'm curious what you mentioned about being present and watching it last night. I've got a news channel on in the studio and a sports channel on, and they're both talking about it right now. So will you take the time to, you figure the talking sports shows will do it, but I don't know, will you watch that kind of feedback or do you have enough of it?
You know what? I'm an idiot. I couldn't figure out, I got a new remote for my cable, and I can't figure out how to access the DVR. I tried to tape SportsCenter to see what they said, and I couldn't access it.
Come on.
So
Director can't access it.
I tried to catch up on Twitter. My girlfriend went to bed around midnight, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to stay up. And I talked to Dave for a little bit, texted with some of my friends, Zoomed with my family right after the show. I was like, all right, I'm going to go back in the timeline to 9 p.m. and just see how this thing evolved. And I couldn't go back that far because there were so many. I mean, I guess there would have been so many tweets anyway, but it would only let me go back to midway through episode 2. But it was so the crew, the staff, and I sending things back and forth. There was a meme that said, "Jesus Christ, former Nazareth resident." And then someone made a Traveling Cocaine Circus T-shirt, which please, I will pay top dollar for that. To see those things resonating is really, really cool. Just to see people enjoying it the way that we enjoyed it and hoped it would be enjoyed. So, yeah, I did go through a lot of that stuff last night, but there's still work to be done. I think, like I said, we have to have 10 done by Wednesday, so Thursday's going to be the bizarre day, because then all I have to do is wait for these episodes, the final version of the episode to come in, and then I watch it down one more time and give my final notes and sign off, and that's it, and then that thing's out in the world. So I just did that for 7 yesterday. We changed the ending of 9 yesterday morning. We finished the rough cut of 10. We had been working all through the night, nonstop, on Saturday night to Sunday. So we exported the rough cut and gave it to all of the partners and executives at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. And then after that, I had to do the final watch down of episode 7 and put that to rest. And then I went on a walk with my girlfriend, and we came back and I took a nap and then just Zoomed with a bunch of work people and all that. But that's what the day was yesterday. So there's really no time to do any, I forget what your question was. Sorry, I'm punch drunk at this point. But yeah. So I didn't have time. Your question was have I seen, I think, the stuff that's out there. So bits and pieces. But I haven't really had time to sit there and just surf around on my phone and laze around, relax. I
Episodes
get important
3
phone
and
calls like this one.
Yes.
Yeah, very important. Episodes 3 and 4 this Sunday, ESPN. Jason, you got requests everywhere. I speak for everybody. You taking the time for little old Sacramento is amazing. Listen, I love you. I am proud of you. Drink water, sleep, all the things I've been telling you. Take care of yourself and enjoy. Please enjoy everything. You deserve it.
Well, guys, look forward to talking to you next week.